you know, when you think about the culture of Australia, you think about dinky-die Aussies, that larrikin behaviour, the good old-fashioned fun, when the Aussies used to celebrate Australia Day, and we didn't take ourselves too seriously. And I think that that is what is such an important part of Australian culture, but apparently we have to take ourselves too seriously these days, otherwise the left will cancel you and come after you. But Pauline Hanson has also spoken about the backlash to those comments, where people are saying, well, hang on a second, how can you support the Socceroos, who are ethnically diverse, and a lot of people who have come from overseas? And this is what she had to say in response.
People from different backgrounds and cultures and nations all wearing green and gold and representing one nation under one flag and succeeding under the same set of rules.
You know, it's a really simple, it's just so simple. It's like 1 + 1. Monoculturalism, in my view, is that easy. It is about accepting our values, and it's about being that Australian spirit. Now, you come in from different countries, of course you do, and you still have your own traditions. That's not what she's saying. She's not saying change your traditions, but she's saying come here and accept our way of life, otherwise don't come at all. And I am so confused why, well, the left are up in arms about it, but even the Liberal Party is completely split down the middle on this. This is what we would want out of our culture, is it not?
I think firstly, monoculture sounds pretty boring. But secondly, I think obviously everyone who comes here needs to abide by Australian law. That is an absolute fundament. They should also share Australian values. That I don't know how you can, as Elizabeth I said, don't plan to make windows into men's souls. I don't know how you can look into someone's soul and say, well, do you really share it? But they certainly have to behave as though they share our values. But aside from that, I don't know if that's culture. I mean, I've got no problem whatsoever with having a Little Italy or a Chinatown or, you know, Harris Park in Sydney with its
I don't think that's what she was saying, though, Joe.
Well, they're different cultures. That's more than one culture.
But I don't think she's saying that. I think it's just saying as long as you accept our Australian way of life and you say Australia first. Like, I'm not... I think Little Italy's great. Little Greek,
I think all these
Greek
people
sections,
do.
Vietnamese, fantastic.
But anyway, I
think
that's certainly not how a lot of people are interpreting it. They're saying we should all be the same. And again, I don't really know what she means, and this is why I think she's sort of struggling to actually explain it even now. The other thing, though, with the Socceroos, if One Nation had been in government, we would have no Nestri Arankonda. He would not have been accepted into the country because he was in a UN HCR-run refugee camp, and One Nation's official immigration policy, as per its own website, is that we do not cooperate with the UNHCR on refugees. So he simply wouldn't be there. So we'd be 1 goal down. So one of our 2 goals
so we would have still won, far, is what you're saying.
Would never have been scored. But he's our star player. Everyone's saying he's the best thing since sliced bread. He wouldn't be here. So again, that is just
this
one
is
of the
such a weak argument to run seriously that, you know, oh, geez, we might not have won a game of soccer unless we had...
if she's saying the Socceroos represent
policies.
Everything that One Nation supports, well, that's just not true. That under a One Nation government, their star player would have been denied.
All right, so they'd have one less player potentially. But what she is saying is that the symbolism of all these people who come from different ethnic backgrounds playing together under one flag, one country, with one national anthem, that is what she's saying. It's that you can come from many different places and you'll never be able to remove the fact that you've come from another place, and you'll never be able to remove elements of the culture of the place that you have come from. But when you come to Australia, we all submit to the same thing.
That's multiculturalism.
And
that's what we've got.
The problem, though, is that the multiculturalism that we see in some elements of Australia, particularly suburban Sydney, is not one that is basically multiculturalism at all. It's that the multis have all separated, and so you have one culture over there, and one culture over there, and one race over there, and then we call that multiculturalism.
That's exactly what I said. That's Chinatown, Little Italy, Harris Park.
Well, it's a bit different. I mean, do you mean...
Sorry,
Joe.
They are ethnic enclaves.
Joe, OK, so Chinatown in the city, which is a place where a lot of people from, you know, all walks of life go to have a Chinese meal, or are you talking about Hurstville, which has a large Chinese population?
Both.
Because you go to places... Exactly, but you go to places that have large, different ethnic groups, and it feels like they have removed themselves from the rest of Australian society.
It doesn't really bother you at all.
It does bother a lot of people. Because we should be one Australia. Why do you come from another country and then set up shop and say, well, actually, I want to make this country like the country I came from?
But does it make your life any worse off? Are you missing out on anything?
Well, yeah, I think it detracts from the fabric of the country.
I think so.
You can't truly integrate someone into the country if they come out here and then are basically removed from the rest of the country.
How did we get the Socceroos
I don't think
then?
it's good. I don't think it's good.
They emerged from this
I don't
culture.
think it's good for them, and nor do I think it's good for us.
No.
Because it then removes our ability to connect with people of different backgrounds.
What if I told you the most Googled question about being Australian isn't about Vegemite, isn't about kangaroos, it's about whether you're even allowed to call yourself Australian anymore? Sounds dramatic, right? Stick around, because this rabbit hole goes deeper than you think. Quick favour before we continue, if you're loving this, smash that subscribe button right now. Most viewers haven't yet. It takes 1 second, but it helps this channel keep going. Thank you. Now let's continue.
I don't think it's a case of losing your traditions, you know. It's not a case of coming here and losing your traditions.
So you should allocate where people should be interspersed in the community?
No, I just think that people
how do you
set
fix
up...
it? Like, what does it look like?
It's like they've set up their own little tribes almost, like their own little...
So what do you want to do about it?
Well, I just think that we need to... If these...
So
I don't have a problem with people coming into this country.
Family members?
Right? This is not the point. I don't have a problem with people coming into this country and sticking to their own traditions, right? But I do have an issue if they're not putting our country first and they're not trying their best to adapt to our culture. And that is what bothers me.
But you just said you're happy for them to keep their own traditions. They're keeping their own traditions.
Okay, well, do they want to learn how to speak English, for example? They're going to try and let's learn a couple of words. Let's learn some good English. What can I do? Am I proud of the Australian flag? Do I understand, you know, the history of Australia and how we adapt to each other? What about Australia Day? Why is that important? I think people need to know why these days are important to us.
Yeah, well, all the people I speak to in Harris Park speak very good English. And often it's the older generation, the parents, who don't speak very much English. Sometimes they've been brought out by family reunion. But the younger people, almost always, they speak absolutely perfect English.
Well, and some do. No one's saying that all migrants are bad. It's just that I think to some degree...
So people say, why can't they be more like us? We want them to... You know, yes, they should be able to keep their own cultures and traditions, but they should have our culture.
Well, of course. What's wrong with that? You can bring elements, beneficial
elements...
elements...
That is multiculturalism. That is saying you can have both.
Yes.
That's not monoculturalism. Yeah, monoculturalism is, by definition, one culture.
Yes.
It means they don't have their own
Why can all of these not form one culture is the point. There are elements of other cultures that we don't want in this country, and I think it's perfectly fine to say that.
So here's the setup. Pauline Hanson recently doubled down on a word that makes half the country twitch: monoculturalism. Her pitch is almost embarrassingly simple, like 1 + 1. Come to Australia, keep your traditions in your back pocket if you like, but the Australian way of life goes on top. One flag, one anthem, one set of rules everybody plays by. Think green and gold Socceroos jerseys, not a patchwork quilt of separate teams. And naturally, the internet lost its mind. Critics jumped in with the obvious jab, mate, that's not monoculturalism, that's just multiculturalism wearing a trench coat. Walk through Harris Park, walk through Hurstville, and you'll see the so-called melting pot never actually melted. It just moved into really good suburbs with really good restaurants. But here's where it gets spicy, and this is the bit nobody wants to say out loud. If you rewind the tape, a version of Australia built entirely on Hanson-style monoculturalism might never have produced its most beloved multicultural success story. I'm talking about young Sudanese-Australian footballer Garang Kuhl, the kid the whole country cheered for like he was everyone's little brother. Turns out, celebrating the kid and celebrating the system that let his family arrive as refugees are two very different conversations. That's the paradox sitting right in the middle of this debate like an elephant wearing a Wallabies jersey. Now, let's talk suburbs, because this is where the theory meets the footpath. Enclaves like Little Italy or the tight-knit communities around Cabramatta get painted two completely opposite ways depending on who's talking. To one crowd, they're proof multiculturalism works, cultural pride living happily next door to the Bunnings snag stand. To another crowd, they're described almost like little tribes, self-contained, insulated, more interested in preserving the old country than joining the new one. Same suburbs, same street, two totally different documentaries playing in people's heads. And even inside the Liberal Party, apparently the room is split right down the middle on this. If the so-called adults in the room can't agree on what an Australian even is, good luck getting a consensus out of the comment section. So here's the real question buzzing underneath all of this, and it's bigger than footy jerseys or postcodes. Is being Australian about the passport in your drawer? Is it about reciting the same values on command? Or is it about actually being handed a seat at the table, not just permission to stand in the room? Because there's a massive difference between being tolerated and being trusted to help shape where this country goes next. Food for thought, and honestly there's no neat little bow to tie this one up with, because the country itself hasn't figured it out yet. Thank you for watching. Your thoughts and opinions are much welcome in the comments below. Just try to keep it respectful. I'll see you in the next one.